I am so tired of doing podcasts.
We're starting to see a lot of podcasts and podcasters kind of getting bashed.
And all the guests seem to contradict each other and say different things, but they're all renowned experts.
I'm able to learn so many different things from our different guests and then take the things that fit myself as an individual.
Fitness fads that won't be here in 10 years. Cold plunge, ice bath.
It's real easy to bash cold plunging because it is super popular.
No one does those things. No one's doing the infrared, the ice bath.
Why do people do this? No one does this.
If keto worked, why is nobody doing keto anymore?
And I'm paying you Spotify so I don't get ads, and now I'm getting ads either way.
We work with sponsors, but all these products have been in line with things that we have been talking about for years.
Podcasts are businesses. They are not vessels or means of getting you free information.
Podcast isn't free. You don't have to pay for it, but we're trying to sell to you. It's fine. That's just the way it is. Yeah, I think we're starting to see a lot of podcasts and podcasters kind of getting bashed. I see Huberman getting bashed all the time.
Yeah.
Seems like they scrutinize every little word or everything he says, which I guess is probably fair because he's coming off as a authority, like in science, and then he's sometimes reading research, and sometimes I think what happens in these podcasts is sometimes you get a blend of like research, personal beliefs tied into personal experience. It's sometimes hard to decipher like what's what. And I just think that a lot of people are probably really jealous of Huberman. What you were saying earlier about, you said it was like something else?
Yeah, no, I said Andrew Huberman, cold plunging, and in and out are things that people love to hate because they're the best at what they do.
Because they're popular.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing too, because it's like, a lot of people we're about to see, like obviously Layne Norton and Dr. Mike, a lot of people hate the idea of cold plunging. It's like one of those things that are seen like a fad. Saunas are seen like a fad. I think we saw a clip from, what's that guy's name? Troponin Nutrition.
Oh, yeah.
He was pretty much making a clip on how like a few years from now.
Harris.
Justin Harris.
Justin Harris, there you go.
Yeah, we could even pull up the clip because it's like, I think it's literally on, it's on Merrick Helps.
Yep.
I think it'd be good to pull up actually. But he was pretty much mentioning no one's going to be doing this stuff in some time. But the problem is we know how beneficial these things can be. And it's not like they're the top things you must do for optimal health, but they can obviously push you in the right direction. And we're always searching for things that are going to push us to be a little bit better.
Yeah, I understand where these guys are probably coming from. They're probably coming from the fact of like, hey man, like why don't you just go to the gym and like train? Why don't you go on a run, go on a walk, be active and start to engage in some healthy disciplines, some healthy practices. Like, what are you doing thinking about spending all this money on like red light therapy or getting a cold plunge? You should probably stick to the basics. And those are all decent arguments.
Yes.
But, why not incorporate all of it? Why not try? Like, what about, there's some people that have a good diet and they're exercising, and they still have something like psoriasis, and they have to like figure things out, and then they have to try to go keto, and then they try to go carnivore, and then they try red light therapy, and they end up eventually landing on something. We've seen this with some guests we've had previously. Chad Mendez comes to mind. I've heard this from other people as well. They land on something that really starts to work for them. So I think, the podcast world and the fact that we get this long content, I think is a huge benefit. I do think that we should always be paying attention to who's delivering the information, and we should also think about the information that's getting delivered to us as well. Is this advertorial? Is this an advertisement that's attached to money? You guys know from us, we authentically share who sponsors the show, but it would be hard to know unless you actually know us on what's a sponsor and what's not. Like maybe the Fiji water that's sitting here, maybe that's like a secret sponsor or something like that.
And they're not.
Right.
That'd be dope though, Fiji. So.
And kind of regardless of what we say or how we say it, some people might think we're lying, or they might think that we're embellishing something to try to make money some other way. And some people might totally believe everything that we say. And I don't think that's a good way to listen to really anything or anybody. I don't think you should necessarily blindly believe anything. I think you should investigate it and look into it yourself. But when you hear somebody saying that, they've had anxiety for like 12 years and then cold therapy of some kind, just maybe doing it in the shower first and then recognizing what the shower did for them, and then they invested in a cold plunge. and they say that it changed my life, a light bulb goes off in my head, and I'm like, I should check into that if that's something that I think that I need.
Mm-hmm.
I think before we watch this Justin Harris thing, and then before we get into more of this, one thing is look at yourself as an individual, because there's actually a really good video, and I think we'll link it down there. James Smith made a video, and it's killing it right now. And it's like the problem with modern podcasts, or the downfall of modern podcasts. And a lot of comments that I was seeing there, and a theme in that video James was mentioning is that, oh yeah, podcasts like Huberman, or Diary of a CEO, they'll bring on one guest, and then next week they'll bring on a guest that contradicts what that guest said. And then they'll have all these different guests. And then people were like, yeah, how are we supposed to figure out what to do if we're getting all of this conflicting information? And I understand how difficult that is, especially if, you're working, you have your job, and then you try to come to a podcast to tell you what you should do, but you're an individual. And that's kind of why I kind of I love what we do, because even myself, I'm able to learn so many different things from our different guests, and then take the things that fit myself as an individual and that worked for me to have my own formula for my health and fitness, which doesn't look exactly like yours and doesn't look exactly like yours. But we've been able to take these concepts from different people who sometimes have contradictory ideas and form the opinion for ourselves. And that's what I think that's what the goal should be, because we can tell you the big levers: sleep, whole foods for nutrition, get some exercise, get walks, get different light. Like you do those things, a lot of levers are pulled, but then there's some extra things that can really push you in the best direction for yourself.
And we've had some guests come on the show and say some stuff where we're like, nah. But then we try it, or like a little bit of time goes by, and we're like, maybe they were right. And sometimes you're like resistant to it because of previous beliefs or previous thoughts.
Yeah.
And then you actually try it, and you're like, shit, they were, they were right. So we don't really know what's right or wrong all the time. Even ourselves, even when we're interviewing people, we're not always 100% sure. It takes a while. You have to stack it up against, previous beliefs. But in the case of a show like The Diary of a CEO, I actually think that Stephen Bartlett he's like sciencing the entire thing. And what I mean by that is, like, you can tell as he goes through the podcast that he has his own thoughts. You can kind of tell he has his own beliefs. But I think I think sometimes he's hopeful that things will line up with his beliefs. Yeah. And sometimes he's disappointed that it doesn't line up with his beliefs, because he wants to kind of continue down the same path or something like that. But I also think that he is testing some of his beliefs and some of his theories constantly. And that's what the show is about. And that's why the show will have one guy on, saying that, vegetables are, killing you. And he'll have the next guy on saying you need diversity in your diet in order to have really healthy gut microbiome. And then he'll reference the other guy. He'll say, this other guy said, I'm kind of confused. And that helps walk the listener through all this kind of noise that's around us, because we hear the same thing. We hear that eggs are good on one hand, and then eggs are bad, and you shouldn't eat the yolk, and you should eat the yolk. You should only eat the yolk, or you should only eat the whites. It just goes back and forth, and you start to get very confused.
Yeah, it would be, in my opinion, it would be so lame if we only talked about people or talked with guests that were always in favor of our opinions or our ideas. And we never challenged ourselves or challenged the guests. And we never got out of this echo chamber where, fatty cuts of meat are super healthy. Eggs are super healthy. We don't need vegetables, all this stuff, right? Like, in my opinion, I think that would be so lame, because we would never challenge ourselves, and we would never get more information as a whole to be able to decide for ourselves, not just have somebody speak and say, yep, that's gospel, going to do that forever.
It's eye-opening to learn about something like a carnivore diet. You learn about it, you hear about it, and you're like, okay, that's kind of cool. I get to eat this amount of meat, and I get to choose these like fatty cuts and stuff. But then you start to hear from Stan Efferding that dietary fat should probably represent about 33% of your overall calories. I'm not someone that counts calories, so I'm like, man, what does that mean? 33%, I'm trying to do some math. And then furthermore, when you go beyond that, say 33% of those calories should be from saturated fat. And you want to be cautious that you don't start to go over that. And so you start to get information from this guy, that guy. You have someone like Mike Dolce who will maybe suggest that you don't eat too much saturated fat as well. Then you get another guy who might say it. And then you might even hear from from Sean Baker, you might even hear him say, well, yeah, like you got to be cautious. Like if you're going to overeat and you overeat unsaturated fats, it might not be the healthiest thing for everybody, you know? And then so you end up with some information for yourself, and now you can start to figure out, maybe I should get some leaner cuts of Piedmontese. Maybe I shouldn't just, you know, order these giant fatty ribeyes at every meal.
And then, though, this is where you treat yourself as an individual. You make specific dietary changes. Oh, you're good. You make specific dietary changes. You potentially get some blood work done to see where your levels are in terms of ApoB cholesterol, and you see, does this idea apply to me at this point in time? Because for me, I eat a lot of saturated fat. I eat a lot of fatty cuts of meat. My ApoB and my cholesterol are fine. But that doesn't mean that for now.
Just wait.
But
Are you eating plants?
That's why I get my blood work done multiple times a year. Like these are the things that you have to put into practice, because then you can see, how does this diet fare with my biology? You have to treat yourself as an individual. You can't just listen to what one person says is the ideal human diet, follow it blindly, and not treat yourself like you are an N of one. You are your own experiment. And that's why I think it is good not to just like, because there are some people that will come onto this show and be like, plants are trying to kill you and this is bad and this is bad. Be careful when listening to them, because you don't have to listen to everything they say, but maybe some of that stuff is actually beneficial for you. Maybe some of these plants do cause issues for your gut. They don't for mine, but maybe for you they do. And it's something that you probably should listen to.
Maybe I enjoy shit in my pants. You ever thought of that?
Sometimes it is. I mean, remember when you were a baby and you just sat there and then you're just like, it's nice and warm and cozy? Do you remember that?
I don't remember those times, but I remember having babies, and they do that.
I'm one of those guys who remembers like when he was 3 years old.
And just sitting there in the corner.
I'm lying to you.
I'm like, I remember, but I don't remember shitting my pants. I remember like being on a trampoline and accidentally shitting my pants.
Everyone's got those stories.
Let me give you guys an embarrassing little tidbit about myself, which I've never mentioned before.
Is it that tiny penis thing that you're playing with?
Actually, it does have to do with this. I was a late bedwetter, dog.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. Now I'm in my 30s and like it's my childhood, so I can get past that shit. But I was a late bedwetter, dog. My dad was too, and he always made fun of me for it.
Oh my god!
So I'd go over to his house. I'd piss the bed at like 10 years old. He'd be like, "You still doing this, kid?"
But he was himself though.
Yeah, he was too.
What?
Man,
maybe it's I'm not gonna say anything mean. But
He's talking trash on you.
He gave me the size though, so I can't trip. You know,
true that.
So,
You're talking about your dick?
Nah. We'll keep that a mystery.
You guys ready for this clip?
Speaking of dicks, let's play this clip from Lane Norton.
Wait, do you want to?
I'm kidding, Lane. I'm kidding.
I'm laughing at something else I saw on the other side of the room. I promise I'm not laughing at that. All right, here we go.
Bath and you want to like, you know, do some of this other stuff in infrared sauna, whatever, like, hey, cool, I'm all for it. But like, don't spend an hour in an ice bath and infrared sauna and meditating if it means you're not going to go exercise.
That's, you know, no one does that, right?
What's that?
No one does those things.
Oh, meditating and
no one's doing the infrared, the ice bath. You could count.
Well, if they do, you know about it because they post about it on social media.
The week they do it.
Right.
Because we're putting on Apple Watches to track steps and our heart rhythms, and then no one counts them after 2 weeks. We're putting on fitness trackers that you said on previous podcasts that are not really accurate when it comes to calorie burning during exercise. They're giving false alerts about cardiac things that they're then bringing into my office, and I have no idea how to handle it. But yet we have experts.
Can you pause real quick?
Dude, is it me or do they look also very similar? Like
they both have the same nose.
Exactly same nose. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
And they're both attractive men, so it's okay. I'm not dissing you guys on your noses. I have a large nose myself. Why do people do this? No one does this shit. Because like, I mean, we'll have this clip from Mike Dolce, but Mike Dolce was like, no one does the keto diet. No one does the carnivore diet. No, we know people who do these diets. And
it's definitely an exaggeration.
And he's like, no one does the sauna. No one does a cold plunge. I'm like, well, we do. And we know a lot of people who do. We know people who are doing it outside of just posting on Instagram. I haven't posted on Instagram in a while, and I still do it.
I think he's trying to say that maybe people don't do it consistently, but we still know a lot of people that do it consistently. I think you've been in the sauna for a while now, right?
I sauna every fucking week. It's not even, I go to a place to get a sauna because it's like, it's inexpensive sweat. It's inexpensive increasing your heart rate. It's just, and there's been so much research to show how good it is for you, but I can feel how good it is for me in terms of recovery and more. So the thing is like, I get what Lane was saying, where it's like, these are not the top levers. You know, if you're not sleeping, if you're not working on your nutrition, don't go fucking buy a sauna and a cold plunge and do those things. But at the same time, these are things that do and can move people's health forward. And it's so unfortunate that people are like, these guys are just, they're just looking at it like it's a fad. I get when influencers start doing something in mass that people like this are like, oh, the influencers are doing it. But in some cases, maybe there is something to it.
I think we like stuff that you can see, you know, and when you can see like a profound impact from something, whether it be a diet or whether it be like lifting, you could see that someone's shoulders got bigger, someone got leaner from this particular diet protocol. And the only real information we have on like getting leaner at the moment is that somebody needs to like be in a caloric deficit, right? And so you can kind of see that. But what happens when somebody's on a different style of diet and they're not really losing pounds necessarily? Maybe slowly they're losing grams, and maybe their body's just more efficient. Maybe the mitochondria in their bodies is like more efficient because they reduce their carbohydrates, or maybe their insulin sensitivity is getting better. But we can't always see all these things, and I think that's where we kind of get caught up is with cold plunging and the red light therapy. From a visual perspective, it looks kind of cool to post on Instagram or whatever, but it's all feel, right? It's like, oh, I feel like, what are you getting from that? Like, I don't know. I feel good. And it's interesting that that's not enough, but feeling good is really important. I mean, you have days sometimes where things are just a little rougher. Your body's a little beat up. Maybe you're a little agitated. You're a little frustrated. Like that kind of sucks. And there's a lot of people suffering, a lot of people going through a lot of different things. And imagine if you just could have a discipline to turn your shower to cold for 30 seconds.
Which is
and
free.
that just assists you. It helps you. Or breathing practice or the red light therapy. It gives you a little bit extra energy. Seems like people are really complaining a lot about having lack of energy. It seems like the energy drink companies are just everywhere. Like there's more and more of these energy drinks coming out all the time. And maybe we need to stop kind of looking just in that one spot. And maybe we start looking in other areas. How do we make our body more efficient with what we already have? And the cold plunge and the light therapy, to me, they make your body more efficient, period. And if you look into it and you start to look into it deeply and listen to just a handful of podcasts, you'll see that the information is there. The science is there to back it up. It will make your body more efficient. It will make your metabolism more efficient. It's not going to necessarily make you burn a bunch of body fat. You're not all of a sudden going to be like, oh man, I did that and I lost 20 pounds. It doesn't work that way. But over time, it can be something that can help you be healthier.
And like, there's two things that Lane mentioned there. He kind of mentioned meditation at the beginning. We've had multiple people on the podcast talk about the benefits of mindfulness, meditation, becoming present. Like that's a big deal. Alan Belcher, who's a heavyweight world champion, Andy Triano, who's worked with countless professional athletes and makes sure that meditation is part of their practice. Dan Garner, who also helps his athletes with that. Like these things aren't minuscule. They are not fads. They are things that really move the needle for people. And the unfortunate thing is that I get why they're saying this somewhat, but they are also two professionals. And it's like, they're putting all their eggs in specific baskets, right? And those baskets are good, but I think there's a lot more things we can do, and we know that there's a lot more things that can do that can really help people that we shouldn't call fads. Because maybe it's not great for you. Maybe, Mike, you don't like getting in a cold plunge or a chilly bath, but that little chilly bath helps a lot of fucking people, and we shit on it because you don't dig it.
Yeah, or we shouldn't shit on it because the studies don't show a significant whatever, I forgot the terminology of, but like a significant difference or significant.
They do though. That's the thing.
But what I'm saying is like that's what sometimes that they'll say,
Yeah.
and then so it kind of gets written off because it's like it was this is a terrible example. You can obviously tell I don't read those studies, but it'll be like 0.1% increase of blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, therefore it was not a significant increase in X, Y, and Z. And it's like, but in my head, I'm like, well, that's sort of like, my bank account gets like 0.001% better. Like, I'm going to want that extra little tiny bit wherever I can get it, right? If I can get like a percentage of a penny, like per day or whatever, yeah, give me that extra little percentage. So I just think it's weird that if you wait for the studies or you wait for the science or whatever, like, man, you're going to be missing a lot of these percentages, every single day when you could be getting better.
But at the same time, for these specific things, to mention again, the studies are there. Like the dopamine benefit of cold plunges is known by everyone at this point. There are studies on red light therapy and its benefits. So it's like, if you're someone who was like wants to lean so hard on that shit's there, right? Mm-hmm. And we've talked about how like, yeah, we pay attention to studies, but we also literally try to also pay attention to people's anecdotes and also our experience with these things. Because not everything we get benefit from, but when we do, we're going to communicate that.
Mm-hmm. You're thinking for yourself. It's crazy.
Let's see if we can play more of the video here.
Okay.
They're saying these are the things, these are the miracle things. If you go into ice bath under this protocol, and it's like, dude, take your protocol and shove it. Because it's like, it's not real. I practice real medicine. When I say real medicine, it's so imperfect and so shitty. And I see how hard people's lives are and what variables are in their lives, from their mental health, their social relationships, whether or not they wear a seatbelt, how fast they drive. And then I'm saying, I'm going to control everything in your life because you took a chilly bath in the morning? Or
Pause. What other options does this guy have? What's he going to do? He's going to just prescribe you medication. Like at best, he might go over a diet with you.
He'll probably be mindful enough. Like he'll do lifestyle stuff.
Right. And they might do like various exams and tests and stuff, but they're kind of limited. I think in today's world, we do need to like decentralize a lot of stuff, and medicine is one of them. You need to be your own doctor. You need to figure out a way. I mean, when stuff happened with your mother, it's like you had to step in and like start to learn shit. Mm-hmm. You got to learn stuff about like cancer because you're like, I don't know, it sounds wrong. Like everyone just thinks like the chips are stacked against you 100%, and they're not even really looking into. There's not even any conversation of other forms of medicine. It's just like we got this like one treatment. It's either this or this, and both of those options seem to stink. So it's like, can we at least, open up our mind a little bit to try some other things? I mean, I was listening to a podcast today. This was referenced on Joe Rogan as well. I'll send the video to you guys, but this guy was talking a lot about ice baths. And this guy, he fixed his own situation. I think he had something wrong with his prostate via some cold therapy. And it was mentioned on Rogan, and Rogan was like, yeah, this guy did it every day. And I didn't really realize how informed this guy was. I thought it was just some guy that like just got in like a cold tub. Mm-hmm. But this guy helps other people out as well. And he just cited time and time again that he was able to assist a lot of other people that had life-threatening diseases and situations. I'm not saying that that's proof of anything, but I mean, after a while, you got to start to kind of look at some of these things. When you're starting to hear empirical evidence, you got to start to say, well, shit, something's going on. Maybe it's just the fact that they're away from their phone for a little while and they're doing the cold and they're doing the red light or whatever it might be. Like there could be other things at play. So there has to be like further investigation and further studies to learn what's really at play. But that's a pretty big deal in my opinion.
My mom recently got her blood work done with Merrick a little bit ago. She's on some specific supplements. She's doing some things at home because when she went to the hospital for an issue she was having for her chest, all she got was medication. And that medication was actually not helping her as much as she wanted it to. And now she's moving in the right direction. But it's like, again, she wants, and I'm not saying there's not a problem with doctors, but doctors have so much that they can do for a lot of people. And a lot of times it does come down to, I'm going to give you a pill. I'm going to give you something to fix it. Not always bad, because those things can save people. But at the same time, habits, lifestyle changes, these types of things that are talked on podcasts with fads, like these things can help change people's lives. The amount of people that are like literally in our Discord and in this community who's like, I've lost all this weight. I've changed my life in this way. It's like because they've taken specific information that works for them and they've applied it to their lives and now they're moving forward. So just because you're a doctor and you see certain things on a daily basis That's great. But a lot of people are now able to do some stuff on their own and benefit from the information, the fad information that they're getting.
And it's not harmful at all to utilize that in combination with a doctor.
Nope.
You know, the doctor has specific, certain recommendations, and maybe they do prescribe something, and maybe that pill could help you or could help bridge the gap in the meantime while you're going through this, whatever it might be that you're going through. Maybe your blood sugar is bad, and maybe you need, to take like metformin for a little while. But this idea that they're going to like supply you with something and then you're attached to that forever probably isn't a great idea. And so why not explore like, I wonder what are some other things that could help burn up some of my sugar. Oh, would you look at that? Lifting weights can really be amazing for stuff like that. Having more muscle mass can be a storage area for glucose. Maybe that would help. And you start to gather more information. And the way that we gather information now is through the internet, and a lot of it is coming from podcasts.
Yeah. According to like statistics, 1.5 more people in my immediate family should get cancer, just based off of numbers. There's a really good chance that none of us will. But if I happen to be one of those persons that gets cancer, I'm not going to follow traditional medicine. I'm going to follow stuff that I've heard on podcasts, because I saw what the route is when you just follow traditional medicine. And I'm talking like elementary school level ketogenic type stuff where, like you hear about, like the ketogenic diet and how its benefits on like cancer or whatever, potentially. Even stuff like that where I'm like, why are you telling my mom that has stomach cancer that she can and should eat ice cream? Like, that sounds weird to me. I don't like that. But this other guy that's saying like maybe a cold plunge might have been able to help, I'm going to at least explore it. Right? If that's me, I know for sure that route didn't work. So I'm going to go this other route because, hey, maybe it will work, or in conjunction with this other side too.
Right.
But if I couldn't think for myself and if I didn't have access to podcasts, then I might not have those thoughts.
Cool. Keep playing it.
Do you know why it's chili baths? And this is my theory why people are doing the baths now.
I think it's because it looks cool for social media.
I think
to be honest.
cryotherapy created too many problems and was too expensive for them to run. And people were having too many effects because it was so extreme that this is the downgrade where they could still make some money.
Yeah. I mean,
that's my theory.
Pause. Did you guys actually, because I did a little bit of cryotherapy when I was in my early 20s, like 2 sessions. It didn't really do it for me. It wasn't very helpful. But did you guys did cryo at all?
I've done it before. I would say I noticed maybe like a similar impact, but it seems to be quite a bit different. Like I remember going into the like chamber or whatever, and I was able to like move around in there, like as if I felt like I came out of the cold plunge. But the water is just, I think it's way different. I think the best cold therapy is water, but if you can go outside and get some cold exposure that way and stuff, I think that that's still beneficial. Yeah. I just think it's beneficial in maybe a different way.
At this point, nasal breathing while you're asleep is no longer something that just us bros do, but people are realizing that it can make a big difference in your sleep quality, your recovery, and all aspects of sleep. That's why hostage tape is so important, because many people have their mouths drop open while they're asleep, they're snoring, and that really affects the quality of their sleep. And that's why many wake up groggy and not feeling extremely rested. Hostage tape will allow you to tape your mouth shut even if you have a beard. Us bearded folks can put the tape on and can be confident enough that when you wake up in the morning, the tape will still be on your mouth, which will help you breathe through your nose. And they also have nose strips if you're someone who struggles breathing through the nose. Those nose strips will help you open up your airway and breathe a little bit easier while you're asleep. How can they get their hands on some hostage tape?
Yeah, you guys can head over to hostagetape.com/powerproject, where you guys can receive mouth tape and nose strips for an entire year for less than $1 a night. Again, hostagetape.com/powerproject. Links down in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
They're randomized controlled trials, but they're not placebo controlled because you can't placebo for cold water. But like there are some benefits like soreness reduction, inflammation, but
for how long?
Right.
And when I say for how long, I don't mean how long in the moment. I mean how long after you become cold adapted to this thing does that effect stay?
I think what I tell people is I kind of use
So let's talk a little bit, because when it comes to cold plunging, you can become cold adapted after a certain point, but it's still not an easy thing to do. even if you are adapted to the cold. You might be able to stay in there for a little bit longer. But I've noticed that when I've done it for long periods of time, because what I try to do is I'll do it for a while, then I'll take a break. But even when I do it for a while, I still get that benefit of the feel good for hours afterwards. Inflammation is reduced because I do jujitsu multiple times a week, so my body gets beat. That effect still stays. Again, N of 1, but that's one thing that I've noticed for myself, and other people have mentioned the same thing. How about yourself?
Yeah, you don't really get adapted to it. It's still switching on. It's still switching on like a mechanism in your body for you to produce more heat, and you're still going to feel fucking cold.
You will. That's how you can tell someone hasn't fucking done it.
Yeah. And on some days, you're going to feel way colder. On some days, I feel like a bug under like a magnifying glass. Like I'm so uncomfortable in there. I'm like, ah.
Are those the days that you feel less recovered too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yeah. It feels like sharp. Like it like kind of hurts almost. I'm like, oh my God. And then other days I get in there and I feel fine. But I don't think you really get, maybe you adapt to it a little bit. You know, maybe you get a little bit used to it. I remember when I lived in New York, like, you know, you get used to the cold weather and you just don't care and you don't wear a jacket and you just don't really give a shit. You get used to it after a while and you're like, oh, it's 40 degrees. It's like not a big deal. The sun's like kind of sort of out and I feel fine. So you do kind of you adapt to it a little bit, but like we're just talking a couple degrees. So, you know, lower the cold plunge if you have to. Yeah. Or, I mean, there's other things you can do. Like if you need to increase the difficulty of it, you warm yourself back up through exercise and or stand in front of a fan or something like that when you get out of the cold plunge.
Nope.
Like whatever way you got to, make it challenging for yourself and make it something. I think that one of the important things is, and this is mentioned by David Goggins and Andrew Huberman on their podcast that they did get together. And Huberman was citing that the area of the brain that willpower comes from expands and grows larger when you do the thing that you don't want to do. And so if you get really used to the cold plunge being 55 degrees, like just lower it down a little bit. You know, get yourself used to the next level of it and then get yourself used to the next level of it and so on. At a certain point, it gets so cold that you're not going to really ever, in my opinion, you're not going to adapt to the water temperature being like close to freezing.
One thing I want to mention too, because this was mentioned in the James Smith video, and he mentioned it with like, oh, well, cold plunging became something easier for people to sell versus cryotherapy. On our show, we work with sponsors who pay us and we make money selling these things and talking about some of these products. But all these products have been in line with things that we have been talking about for years and have brought us benefit. There are many sponsors who have wanted and continue to want to work with the show, but we do not dig their stuff. It has not brought us benefit, and we don't fully actually believe that it'll bring the viewer the benefit that we want, that we are looking for. So that I think it's important to understand, like, yes, we do work with companies, we do make money, but at the same time, we're sharing things that we believe are truly going to make a difference to the listener. Now, not everybody does that, okay? But at the same time, it's like, I just want it to be understood that we are sharing things we actually believe in. That's why we don't work with a crazy amount of sponsors.
Yeah, and we have no problem being transparent and saying the podcast isn't free. Like it's on a free platform. You don't have to pay for it, but we're trying to sell to you. It's fine. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, and it's only stuff that that we use. So with that in mind, if you need a VPN, head to, I'm just joking.
I do use NordVPN.
I want to also point out,
though, fancy that. Did you know that if you
Power Project, check it out. We don't have a VPN.
But if we did, it would be /Power Project.
I do think it's worth pointing out that Lane Norton is trying to interject some science into the conversation, but for some reason the doctor maybe is excited to talk to Lane and he kind of keeps cutting him off. Because it seems like Lane's being pretty rational about it. He's like, actually, there is some science to show certain things with cold plunging. Again, I think it's real easy, as Andrew was pointing out, it's real easy to bash cold plunging because it is super popular and you are seeing everyone talking about it. And I think that a lot of those individuals don't really know what it does, but that's okay. It's still probably a net positive for a lot of people.
Like, let's say all this stuff is I want to pick up as much weight in boulders as I can get, or much weight in rocks as I can get. I'm going to focus on picking up the boulders first, right? Because I get a lot from my big bang for my buck by picking up a boulder. If I can get some pebbles after that, cool. I'll take them.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to drop the boulder so I can pick up the pebbles.
Yeah.
And I think that is the problem is when you say this is important and this is important and this is important and this is important, people don't know how to, like, what's the most important? And so one of the things I'll tell people is I kind of boil it down into like, I'm still working on this pitch, so forgive me.
I like it.
But I think there's kind of like 6 pillars that I would say, hey, this may not be perfect, but it's going to get you 95% of the way there to optimal, which is don't eat too much for your given amount of energy expenditure. Basically, don't become obese. Stay at a healthy body weight. Don't smoke. Don't consume or very much limit your alcohol consumption. And same thing goes for drugs. Exercise vigorously. Sleep. Try to be consistent with it too. Like not just the duration, but also the times. And then the last one I've added is managing your psychological stress. Okay. I think that is, the older I've gotten, the more I feel like I've seen that be very pervasive that affects, it's kind of like
it affects all the other ones.
Tip of the pyramid that comes down, right? That's affecting sleep. Why do people do drugs?
Pause.
I mean,
so this is where circadian rhythm can come in to play. Like if you don't get sunlight, your mindset is going to be very poor. That's why there's something that's called seasonal depression. You know, when it's wintertime, and even here in California, like people get really bummed out in California. If it's cloudy for a couple days and it's raining for a couple days, people get really bummed out. So it's an interesting thing, and I really appreciate that he does mention your mindset, psychology, how to manage your stress, and these things. But they also are getting managed by your daily disciplines, the things that you probably have access to that you could easily do, like getting outside, going on a walk. You don't necessarily need to like cold plunge necessarily, but these are all things that could potentially make you feel good, and they could be things that potentially allow you to handle stress easier. That's the whole point in us lifting weights and doing the exercise and the things that we like doing, is because A, it makes us more confident, but B, it also is like a simulator. It's a simulator of life. You know, there's other stresses going on in life, and the more that you get used to stressing yourself on your own accord, in your own circumstances, your own way, the better you're going to be able to handle other stresses.
And this is one thing where it comes to figuring out habits, right? Because there are going to be certain things that you want, like Lane, that was really well put. Food, smoking, alcohol, drugs, exercise, sleep, psychological stress. But when someone comes into all this and they're like, okay, I'm going to change my life, you can't do everything at once. It's going to be hard to. I won't say you can't. It's going to be very hard to try to take down everything at once. So you're probably going to want to handle that sleep, right? And then it's going to take a little bit of time to get things around your sleep architecture. That you're going to probably handle food. Then you could probably start handling exercise or microdosing exercise, doing a little bit, then slowly increasing over time. This stuff takes time, right? But now, like as you handle those things and you want to add in certain things that could bolster things, if you do maybe want to start adding in some red light therapy, because that'll help your light in the morning and maybe help with certain aspects of that. That could be really good to help move you in the right direction. Is it going to be the biggest pillar? No, but it could help these big pillars work better. And that's why we talk about these things, because we've always talked about the basics, right? But the other things we talk about are going to help, I believe, as they've helped me, they will help everything work better.
Yeah, I love what he said about like the boulders and then the pebbles and that sort of thing, because like just having that skill and knowing kind of what boulders that I need to pick up, even when stuff gets busy, I stay in pretty good shape. I stay healthy, even though I'm not picking up all the pebbles anymore at this point, or whatever I'm going through at that time. Knowing which boulders to pick up, and I really do like that analogy a lot, has just kind of kept me, has kept me in good shape and healthy. And then in time, I know which pebbles I want to go pick up later. So I think that was really well said.
His top 6, maybe as he gets older, will maybe rotate around, and 6 will be number 1. It should be, but he also might not be mentioning them in any particular order. He might just be rattling them off.
It goes both ways. This is bi-directional. Like what's happening in your body affects your mind, and what's happening in your mind affects your body. And I think that's a big one that people really overlook. And I think the reason is because it's freaking hard to manage psychological stress. It is hard. And I'm somebody who am just now feeling like I'm starting to get to the point where I can actually like self-soothe without like something really bad happening and me having to text 5 people or like punch a pillow or like go outside and yell. Like that's taken me a long time, you know? And I think there's a lot of people who it's, my friend John Deloney, again, he's like, alcohol is great at what it does. He's like, you'll numb up and it's great. He's like, and it trains people that like, hey, this is a great solution in the short term.
Pause. That's a hell of a thing for him to admit on there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think, your psychological stress, allowing it to accumulate and then not addressing it, I think is a huge thing. And I think that people don't think about it. So people go to the gym. This is a huge issue within people that are active, especially people that like actively love to do workouts. Not necessarily just the weight room, but people that love exercise or working out to some degree because they go and like work it out. But they don't. You're working out.
Gym is my therapy.
Yeah, all you're really doing is getting out some energy. And yeah, you could be getting out some negative energy, and you could be feeling really good, and you could be, releasing a lot of hormones. There could be a lot of things going on in your brain. You could be feeling really good about yourself and about things that are going on, but you didn't really solve anything, and you didn't really meditate. You really didn't think about something. You didn't really move forward or make any progress. It was much like alcohol. It's just a pause button, really. Like the alcohol to me, like hits a pause button on your life, and you get to like not really think about those bad moments or those things that you're maybe doing wrong or the things that you should be doing right or whatever those things are. You can kind of put everything on hold. And of course, lifting is obviously a lot more positive than alcohol, but it can be dangerous and it can be addictive to the point where you are kind of suffocating yourself with it. You're not allowing for a lot of mental growth and a lot of growth that you could have otherwise spent some time working on managing your stress.
Question. In that type of situation, you get a devastating or a wild fucking text, right? Or just something happens. How have you over the years, what has been your method for not letting it fucking displace you?
I think the first thing is time. The first thing is like, do you have a moment? Do you have time? Do you have time to like let this? Do you have time to like sit on this? Can you take
a beat?
Yeah, can you take a beat or two? Maybe even responding right away is really a horrible thing. Sometimes you read something, and you kind of react, and then you get right into it right away. Sometimes it's good to like address certain things in a timely manner, but things that you're kind of viewing as stressful, especially if like some heat is coming your way. And then I think you want to start to think about like, well, I actually do care about that person. So, if it's just a friend, you're messing around, it's like, that's kind of different. You're throwing heat at each other that way. That's kind of different. But if it's someone that you care about and you throw a flame back their way, you're just creating more fires, and you need, more fire extinguishers to put all that shit out. And the best way to avoid that is that if something does come at you that's kind of hot, is just cool it off by just taking some time. Take a beat, take a minute, think about it a little bit. Maybe think about what it's like to be that person. Maybe think about what they're going through their particular day. Like, oh, maybe, something hit them sideways already for the day. And maybe that's why, this message came through this way. I think that we feel like we need to respond to everything so quickly, and that everything's like a big emergency. We have to get the stuff right away. People really need us. That's a good feeling, that people need us, but they really don't. There's really nothing that urgent. Usually, I don't think you can save or do a whole lot by like reading a text message. I mean, or even like any sort of message. I don't think there's not much you can really do about it, other than take your time and try to organize your thoughts a little bit better.
And a tactic that we've learned from a bunch of people on this podcast, Alan Belcher, Andy Triana, fucking Justin Lovato, is maybe picking up the habit of some type of meditation. And it'll be annoying. It'll be fucking the most infuriating thing when you start because you'll be like, I can't focus. Right. Everyone gets that. But that can give you the skill outside of that practice to be able to take a beat. Because some people, when they get something, it's like, I see red. Fuck that bitch. Pop, 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 pop. They send a bunch of messages. They send a bunch of voice messages, and then they're out of it. And they're like, what have I done? But some of these faddish things, as Dr. Mike said, meditation is a fad. These things can help, right? So it's like, these things can help.
There's physical things you can do too. Like
Absolutely.
if something's stressing you out, like going on a walk is a pretty easy one. But that's another one. It just really just buys you some time.
Yeah.
It gives you a little bit of time. I think that, recognizing that anger is kind of a weakness, and it's usually not all that helpful. Maybe in certain cases being like assertive or aggressive, like maybe assertion and aggression, maybe sometimes could be beneficial in certain cases. But for the most part, you really you want to try to think about how you can communicate better. And so I think, the number one strategy for, receiving a poor text message or anything like that is to say, hey, I'd like to speak to you in person about this, or I'd like to, can we get on a call? If you can get on like a Zoom call or something like that where you can see the other person, I think all those things are helpful because text messaging, you don't know what the fuck's coming through.
Yeah. And we have, do you guys want to see Lane's best friend have some commentary real quick?
Sure thing.
This is on our podcast.
Hey, Mike Dolce.
Self-promotion.
These two love each other.
Like, if keto worked, why is nobody doing keto anymore? Right? Why is nobody really doing carnivore anymore? Why did carnivore go from carnivore to now all of a sudden the carbs are coming back in?
So the reason why I wanted to bring that is because, number one, I wish in my head when I heard him saying that, I was just like, but we do know people who do some of this stuff. Like, I'll be carnivore on some days when I don't choose to eat any carbohydrates. And we do know people who are pure carnivore and who do ketogenic diet and have benefit from it. It's not that people don't do these things anymore. It's that some people have found it beneficial for them. Some people have tried it, and then they've found that maybe it's not the ideal diet for them, but they've been able to take principles from that's helped the rest of how they eat now. No, some people don't eat the same diet in perpetuity for the rest of their lives. So I think it's a mistake to just say these things are fads, because these things have helped hundreds of thousands of people.
I think in Mike Dolce's case, he's probably referring to like a lot of the, influencer, a lot of the nutrition people in the nutrition space.
Yeah.
They, tend to evolve. They go from one thing to another. And it's interesting that people have such a problem with that. I actually think that that's great because I think it's like an evolution. There's some people that get way into counting calories. There's other people that got way into keto and low carb. And in both cases, it seemed to help people manage their nutrition. And it even helped the people that were listening and that were paying attention to those things. Just because maybe some people in the fitness space or nutrition space had a departure from specifically following a ketogenic diet doesn't mean that the basis of a ketogenic diet isn't still super effective. I think there's been a lot of mistakes that have happened in the ketogenic diet, and it's happened at every turn. It's happened with a low-fat diet. It happened with a ketogenic diet. It happens with vegan diets and gluten-free diets. It's when people try to bring in ultra-processed food into the diet and think that they're keto.
Yeah.
Because I think that, like, if you think of keto, I kind of think of like bulletproof coffee and people making weird fat bomb recipes. But keto is exactly what you mentioned. You mentioned like some days you don't really eat hardly any carbs, and knowing that you like to eat fattier cuts of meat, that's keto. That's doing keto at least for the day. And I know that, like, to really get deep into ketosis, you need to do multiple days and so on. It's no carbs and things like that. I think a lot of people, as they dove into keto, the people that were really trying to do it and trying to do it sort of like to the best of their ability, they started to like dive down the rabbit hole more and more, and they started to eat fat. Their fat grams were 1-to-1 with protein to fat. And that just gets to be a really weird and interesting diet, but it still works. And it's still super therapeutic. On a podcast, Lane Norton was asked if he had cancer, what would he do? And he said, fast. What is a mimicker of fasting? the ketogenic diet. Ketogenic diets are amazing, and they always will be, and that'll never change. They might come and go in terms of like people trying to use it for it to be
weight loss.
Yeah, for weight loss or something like that. But it's actually, a ketogenic diet can be like a clinical ketogenic diet can be very difficult to follow in terms of weight loss, because it's actually very easy to go over your caloric intake. Because if you eat fatty cuts of meat and bacon and butter and cheese and stuff, I mean, I think Tim Ferriss, famously like mainly ate cheese on that diet. And he tended to like overeat on his calories. And you hear people saying, yeah, man, I kind of got fat and kind of got stringy and fat at the same time. Well, it's like you're not eating any carbs. And this is new for you. And you're also, eating tremendous amounts of fat. But I mean, we know a lot of people that have success on a ketogenic diet. And we have Dominic D'Agostino, who's going to be coming on the podcast soon. He's strong as fuck, and he's keto. And Dr. Sean Baker, and along with all the other maniac people that follow Dr. Sean Baker, all the people that are enthusiastic about the carnivore diet, that's basically a ketogenic diet. I would even say, like, if you eat a little bit of fruit here and there, and you're primarily eating meat, you're very low carb, and you might be in that kind of keto category. So I think he's kind of mainly referring to like some people that, in the nutrition space, like Paul Saladino and some other people that may have changed some of their views. I've changed some of my views. They evolved over the years, but I still think a ketogenic diet is amazing. I still think the carnivore diet's amazing. We know the Emmerichs, Maria Emmerich and her husband, they really thrive with that diet. There's, thousands of people that follow them and follow their recipes and so on. There's a lot of people that are doing a lot of great things on these diets.
Power Project Family, on the podcast, we talk all the time about feeling good habits to make sure that your health is in check. And one of the things that's super important is getting your blood work done, because you could be getting great sleep, you could be having great nutrition, but under the hood, there could be things going on that you don't realize. So it's always good to get your blood work checked so you can totally understand what's going on. Now, the thing is also, when you get your blood work checked, there's so many different things and so many different numbers that it's hard to tell what's good, what's bad, and how do I optimize things. And that's where Merrick Health comes in, because they have patient care coordinators on staff that can help you interpret your blood work and then give you the necessary recommendations as far as supplementation, nutrition, and if you need it, hormone optimization that'll start moving you in the right direction. Andrew, how can they get their hands on it?
Yes, that's over at marrickhealth.com/power project. That's MAREK health.com/power project. At checkout, enter promo code Power Project to save 10% off the Power Project panel, the Power Project checkup panel, or any individual lab you select. Again, that's at marrickhealth.com/power project. Links in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
I want to add in when it comes to Paul Saladino, because I remember on that podcast with Mike Dolce, if you guys haven't seen it, it's great. You should check it out. But he was saying like he failed multiple diets. And I really, like you mentioned, I don't look at it as like a failure. I think that was like, first off, pretty awesome of Paul to like make a whole book on carnivore. And yeah, he made money with it. That book did help many people. But then he was like, you know what, I'm going to add in honey and fruit. Okay, people are going to say it's not carnivore, but this is something that has worked much better for him. And he's sharing that with people. And some people are looking at him like, you're not a carnivore anymore, you fucking... But at the same time, he's sharing information that's helping him, that's helping many people. And he's not talking shit on fruits. Now he's talking shit on oatmeal and other things and saying plants are still trying to kill you. He's just still do some of that. But at the same time, to open up to that type of idea that you were so against before and sharing that, I think that's pretty sick. I also think it's sick how Sean Baker is totally carnivore and has not changed. But when he speaks about other things, as we've talked to him on this podcast before, he doesn't totally shit on plants and other things. He's like, that can work for some people and fruits can work for some people, but he's not saying like that's going to be horrible for you. He's just trying to help people. And he's not saying everybody must do what I do. So it's something to keep in mind.
I think that's where Mike Dolce was so like verbal against Paul, because Paul would say stuff like, this is the best way. And then preach it, sell it. Oh, wait, now I'm going to switch to, the Carnivore 2.0, and now it's like a different thing. So I think that's what he was referencing. But also, and I am following Mike Dolce's like a style diet because, again, kind of going back to what I said, like I'm just kind of challenging some of my beliefs. It's really easy for me to follow Lane Norton, completely agree with everything he says about diet sodas being totally safe and fine. It's really easy because I like the way those taste and that they help me out with my diet. It's
and
also,
the research backs it up too.
And
They're
the
not
research
bad
shows
for you.
it. And it's also equally, if not even more easy for me to follow somebody like Anthony Chaffee, who says, dude, bro, don't worry about that cholesterol thing. Like, you're good. Look at all this research that shows that like the research was kind of bogus in those studies and stuff. Like, so I'm like, man, I think it's a little bit too easy for me to just conveniently like these certain things, you know? So like, I'm going to lean into, you know, more of the whole food stuff. So like Dolce's got me eating vegetables, which are fucking horrible. They got me shitting everywhere. It's disgusting. I hate it. Just kidding. It's not that bad. But what I'm getting at is, I like what Mike Dolce is saying, but in this case, when he's saying that, like, how come nobody's doing carnivore or keto anymore? I think it's just because it's become a normal thing now. Kind of like what you guys are saying, like, you just do it without calling it keto. Mm-hmm. It's just what we do now, right? Like, I think it's more mainstream. So now it's not the cold plunge thing on Instagram now, right? Because people are like, oh, that again?
It's
like
not the new hot thing.
It doesn't matter anymore. You're not getting the likes anymore, so it's not being shown. But I truly believe that people, I mean, we all do it. I do it too. I don't do it every day. I still love carbs, but you know, I think it's too mainstream now to be like, you know, hotness, you know, hot clickbaity stuff. So it might seem like not many people are doing it anymore, but I mean, all three of us do it.
I wonder how similar Mike Dolce's ideas are to Lane Norton's when it comes to nutrition. Seems like they actually share like a lot of common ground. Mike's not really big into like calorie counting, I don't think, from what he said on the show. But he is prioritizing protein. And Lane is similar. They both are fans of, you know, eating whole foods, trying to get food that's satiating and satisfying, and having. They both meet up on fiber. They meet up on protein. They both meet up on carbohydrate intake. They both meet up on fat intake. I mean, it seems like
saturated, unsaturated.
Yeah,
fats.
it seems like there's a lot of agreement there, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I want you guys to comment down below on if you feel that there is a problem with podcasts and stuff. Like, do you see that there's a problem with the information that you've been taking in on these different shows? Is there actually a problem with modern podcasts? I'm curious what you guys think, because got a lot of people. So let us know. Comment that below and let us know what you think.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's just constant work in progress, right? Like we have, you know, a Mike Dolce on the show, or we have somebody come on the show, and maybe they do talk a lot about, you know, ingesting, you know, carbohydrates or something like that, and eating large amounts of carbs, and they're a bodybuilder. And then, you know, a couple weeks later, we have Dominic D'Agostino on the show and Thomas DeLauer. And, you know, so it's just, you end up going all over the place. But what does it show you? It shows you that you can choose these different styles of diet, and you can just try them all out.
Yeah.
You just got more options, really.
Yeah.
We're not taking anything away from anybody. We're trying to offer more. And it's good to get different perspectives. And maybe, you know, one person's perspective, maybe, you know, maybe that fits like your narrative for that time in your life, you know. Maybe you really love coffee, and this guy's like, dude, there's nothing wrong with coffee. Fuck it, man. Go all in. I love caffeine. I remember there was a guy years ago, Kiefer. He said, have as much caffeine as possible.
Excuse me.
He said, make caffeine your bitch. He's like, if you want to lose weight and get shredded, he said, make caffeine your bitch. And so he just said, consume tons and tons of caffeine. And so
was that here on this podcast?
And so people were excited. Now he never came on the podcast. Oh, okay. John Kiefer, he was backloading guy, backloading diet.
I wonder how many heart attacks that caused.
Yeah, I don't know.
No. Yeah.
I don't know, but you know, he meant for a short period of time. You know what I mean?
Your NEAT is just through the roof because you can't stay still.
Yeah. I think that's what he's trying to do.
Resting heart rate of 88 beats per minute, huh? That's normal.
But I'm getting shredded.
Yo.
Yeah. You know, podcasting is amazing, and the more people that say like that start piling on, I think it's more like the Huberman, the In and Out, you know, because they're amazing, and so people want to talk shit about it. LeBron James, Michael Jordan, like everybody's gonna find shit to talk shit about. But I think the bigger offender is social media, right? Because if we take these clips and then we put them on social media with zero context, that's where shit can get weird, because the chances of somebody actually like following up and like learning more about it is going to be pretty rare if they're catching it on social media, But the ones that do, then it's like, oh, okay, you actually got some information. I equate it to, let's say you read an article online, a small blurb somewhere, and then if you look into it, maybe you find something in a magazine. But then if you look further into it and you actually want to do the research, well, maybe you go get the book on that one thing. And now all of a sudden you learn a lot about it. And then potentially maybe there's like a documentary or something. I see like the tabloids and all that as social media. And then the actual books are the podcasts, right? How many like of your favorite magazines did you have growing up other than like maybe Playboy or something like that? But like maybe some lifting magazines for sure. But like you don't really remember the magazines that you've seen on the side of the like grocery like aisle, but you have some favorite books that you can always reference. So in my opinion, I think that's what podcasts are like. So I think it's silly that these influencers or YouTubers, whatever you want to call them, apologies if people hate that term influencer, are kind of shitting on podcasts because eventually people will go from TikTok and they'll grow up. And I don't mean like in age, I just mean in maturity, and they're going to start searching for more information on what they saw on TikTok or Instagram. Where are they going to go? They need to go somewhere, and I believe that podcasts is where people need to end up and start learning more, because you're not going to learn this in school. You're not going to learn this on the news. Fuck no, you're not. You're going to find all this shit out on the internet, on podcasting. And so, in my opinion, podcasting, I think, are more important now than ever before.
Yeah, you need that long format.
Yeah, absolutely.
Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.
If you guys enjoyed this episode on why modern podcasts are failing, including our own, then maybe you'll like this episode with Mike Dolce, where he talks about why most diets are fads. Watch to help us out. You'll dig it, actually.
Please
Just
help.
click it.